All right. So, welcome to my channel. Um, what I do here is I make flags, I make cutting boards, and just about any other woodworking project anyone can think of. Um, Starting this channel just to kind of show the things that I do. Wanted to give you a little shop tour, take you around the shop. It's not a huge shop, but I like the size of it. Started out in a much smaller shop. My first shop was uh, 10 feet by 12 feet, so 120 square feet. And the shop I'm in now is about 800 square feet. Uh, it's a nice sized space. I obviously have to finish it. You can see the walls behind me are unfinished. So in the future, I plan on running some more electrical out here, finishing the walls, putting in some insulation, and installing an AC system. So far, I think I've got the shop set up to about where I want it. I have the tools that I need. There are a few other tools that I'd like to have. Some tools I need to replace, like my table saw. And I also recently installed a collection system, dust collection system. So you'll see that as I give you the tour of the shop. So that being said, we'll go around the shop and I'll show you what it's all about. So this is my table saw, old Craftsman table saw. It's done what I need it to do so far. Of course, I need to upgrade it. I'd love to have a better fence. This fence is old and janky, and things just pretty much falling apart. I do like the wings on it. That's one thing I like about it. It gives you more space to work. Obviously, you can see I have some wood on it. Have a little catch bag for the dust. You can see I still need to hook up the dust collection to it, which I have some parts for. I just gotta figure out how I want to get it done. And of course, you can see overhead the dust collection system. And here we're moving on from the table saw to the thickness planer. You see this planer I picked up from a guy for about $40, I think I paid for it. And the table saw I paid $100 for. You can see there's going to be a theme of used tools because I haven't really started making money at woodworking. This is pretty much just a hobby. Therefore, I don't have a whole lot of funds to put into things, but I've managed to build an entire shop with just about everything that I need. There are more things that I'd like to have, such as a CNC, things like that, but that'll happen in the future. Then we move on from the thickness planer over to the jointer. Again, Harbor Freight jointer. I picked this up from a guy. I think I paid $75 for it. You can see it's got a few gouges in it. It was completely rusted. The gouges don't really affect it much because it is still smooth to run wood across it. Got dust collection hooked up to it. I do need to sharpen the blades. Let's see. The blades are pretty beat up. Let's see if we can get in there and see that at all. I don't think you can really see that. But the blades, yeah, there you go. You can see a little nick in the blade there. So yeah, need new blades or sharpen up those blades. And the next area is my miter saw station. Again, dust collection is hooked up, as you can see. Big thing to change here is I'd like to actually do a full built-in with cabinets and all. Of course, I would like a bigger miter saw. I started with a 12-inch Chicago Electric from Harbor Freight. That thing fried, so in a pinch I had to go and pick up this Cobalt unit from Lowe's, which has done pretty good for me since I've had it. Of course, I need a bigger one because while this is nice, it just doesn't have the capacity that I need. This is one of my lathes, old, again, Craftsman Sears model. This I think I picked up for $20. Guy I bought it from said that it did not work. Turned out the little power switch that somebody put in here, for some reason the wires just weren't hooked up to the switch. So I pulled it apart, hooked up the wires, and the thing works perfect. Of course, I don't get much use out of it right now, but it is something that I'll be using more in the future. Moving on from there, we have some junk in the back here. This is my recently acquired dust collection system from Harbor Freight. Again, I'm cheap, so yes, I use Harbor Freight tools. This thing has worked very well for me. I will be upgrading it to a 2-stage system, but for now it is doing everything that I need it to do. Of course, you can see the ductwork goes over and across and down to the major production area. From the dust collector, we have another smaller lathe. I use this lathe a lot more, mainly for turning things like pens. I've done a couple of little wands and stuff that I have turned on the lathe here. I like this lathe. It is variable speed. That is one thing that I do really like. The only thing I don't like is that it uses a MT1 chuck. Of course, you can still find the chucks for it, but they're a lot harder to find than the MT2. And of course, my gouges here, pick these up from Woodcraft. They've been very good for me. This is my shaper slash router table. Again, picked this up from a guy. I think I paid him $80 for it, and it's worked great for me. It of course has the Craftsman router, and underneath here I have another plunge router from Harbor Freight, a very old Craftsman router, and back in there I have a rigid trim router, which I use most of the time. My old dust collection, which I still use for kind of the smaller tools like my orbital sander and stuff. Shop vac, and of course the dust topper from Home Depot. I did have a little system that I made out of a Home Depot bucket. It was homemade with, the pipes going in the side, pipes going in the top. Made a vortex system out of it, but decided to go with the dust stopper just because, for the price, it works better than the homemade. After that, I go over here to the bandsaw. This is a 12-inch Craftsman bandsaw. Picked this one up for $40. And again, it's worked just fine for what I need. I would like a newer bandsaw that has a fence and everything on it. It's kind of hard to cut or to book match boards cutting through this just because there is no fence. It's very hard to attach a fence to it, but other than that, it's worked for me. It is probably one tool that I got brand new just because I couldn't find a good used one. It's a little drill press, Porter cable drill press. Again, it's worked fine for me. It's got the built-in light. Don't really know why, because the light is not all that great on it. As you can see, it's works when it wants to. But as far as drilling and everything, it drills. I mean, it does what it needs to do. And of course, next to that, I have my little bench sander, disc and belt sander. This is from Harbor Freight. This was one of the few things that I picked up brand new. And it is kind of funny. Kind of wants to start when it wants to. Oh, surprisingly, it started on the first try that time. Usually, I'm not that lucky with it. Of course, over here we have all the hand tools. Ryobi. I've had Ryobi since, I think my first hand tool I bought was in 1996. And it was actually, let's see. So yes, you can see I use mainly Ryobi power tools. Mainly because they were the first tool I had. This one here, I bought this in 1996. It's been working perfect ever since. And one thing I liked about it is, of course, it came with the old style batteries, but the newer style batteries work fine with it. So I've just kind of kept with the Ryobi brand. I've moved mostly to the brushless tools. Let me see, what do I have here? Oh, yeah, there's the Airstrike. That's been good to me. Oh yeah, here we go. My jigsaw. This is the main jigsaw that I use ever since I got that one. And there's a circular saw, Ryobi circular saw. I got that one for free from an old friend. Still works perfectly fine. Of course, the laser, since I picked it up, the little laser never worked on it. No big deal. It does everything that I need it to do. And then one of the last things to show you is the way I cut down sheet goods. I have this Ryobi brushless. Of course, it's battery operated. I've got the Craig AccuCut system with it, and that's worked perfectly fine for me. Another cool tool I bought, I picked this up off of a listing online for $20. Never even heard of this before. This is a Master Force plunge saw. It's only a 4.5-inch blade. You can see the track saw. It's the whole track saw system. This thing actually works pretty good. I've cut down a couple of sheets with it, and surprisingly, works surprisingly well. All right, to finish off the tour, here is the heart of my shop, the workbench, my Harbor Freight workbench. And I also have this smaller table that I use for a workbench. This is where I do mainly paint and finish, some assembly. The main part of the assembly is done on this table here. Get a lot of use out of it, especially with the little dog holes and everything, using the dog clamps. Works out just fine. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we will see you more in the future.